And we're live. Are you there, John?
Yeah.
Okay, you just were quiet.
Sorry.
Before we get started, your chin is going into your thing, but it'll disappear as soon as I put on. Yeah, that thing disappears when I put that on. All right.
Yeah. Oh, I guess
We got a lot to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're good. We got a lot to talk about, so I just wanted to jump into it, just in case we have a chance to cover some late-breaking topics.
Yeah.
The internet is losing its mind over rumors of Russian spy pigeons, but we're here to separate sci-fi from the science. If you think modern surveillance is invasive, wait until you hear what happens when you try to put a GPS chip inside a bird's brain. Reports are circulating about Project PJN-1, a Russian initiative allegedly turning pigeons into brain-controlled surveillance drones. While the specific project is unverified, the underlying science of neuromodulation steering animals via brain implants is very real and has been lab tested. If this is viable, this creates the ultimate stealth drone, a surveillance device that creates no electronic signature and looks exactly like nature, making it virtually impossible to detect or jam. What do you think about this, John?
So I don't know if you watch the show Fallout based on the video game, but this reminds me of that. There's this little implant that goes in the back of people's necks, and they can be controlled and all that sort of stuff. So that kind of reminded me of this. But so this is crazy. It's kind of cruel to me. So what they're doing is they're implanting these microscopic electrodes into specific regions of a pigeon's brain using stereotactic neurosurgery. Stereotactic. So it's a precision technique that maps coordinates in the brain to guide instruments during implantation. So once the electrodes are in place, they're connected to a tiny electronic stimulator fixed on the bird's head. And when activated, the device itself sends mild electrical impulses to targeted neurons, which are associated with motor functions, which the company says can prompt directional behavior, like turn left or turn right, by subtly influencing the bird's natural flight instincts. So thing is the neural implant doesn't fully override the bird's autonomy. Instead, it nudges its motivational systems so that the controlled responses are integrated with its existing behavior patterns. So in effect, the stimulation biases the bird's choices, which is a strategy closer to behavioral steering than direct mechanical control, as in electronic drones, right? So this kind of scares me. The electrodes, in order to power all this, though, the electronics, they're carried in a solar-powered backpack, which is strapped to the pigeon's body. And so the miniature pack itself, it contains a navigation controller and GPS hardware to pinpoint real-time location, and a camera on the goose's chest for mission data capture. This just it icks me. So the GPS itself, it's crucial because not only for tracking, but to feed the positional data to the controller so that the operator can monitor the bird's progress relative to predefined waypoints. So I don't like this. This is, to me, this is cruel. It's cool, but cruel. What do you think about this, Craig?
Well, yeah, I mean, any sort of experimentation on animals that isn't furthering the longevity of humanity or the animals themselves has got to be questionable. So this is obviously not doing those things. So we're not trying to solve a brain problem or neurology issue in humans that we can fix. We're just hijacking someone's brain, which might lead to hijacking humans. So, obviously I'm against it. Unlike rat bots, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, that use training and conditioning, this system suggests control without prior dieting routines that say, here's a treat for doing your reward. Here's a treat for you doing the reward. The thing is, strap this thing onto a bird and off you go. They don't get that treat reward system. And expert opinion notes that fine control via brain simulation in flying animals is still very hard. I like to think of the technology like using a laser pointer with a cat. You aren't driving the animal like a remote control car with a steering wheel.
No.
Instead, you're stimulating their brain to create intense desire or a phantom signal that tricks them into wanting to turn left or turn right. You don't pilot the bird, hijack its motivation.
Yeah.
Neary microscope. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I need to just to put this in, but there's multiple reports that note that the independent scientific verification of Neary's flight and control capabilities has not been confirmed. So most of the details come from company statements rather than peer-reviewed publications or independent demonstrations. So we cover a lot of stuff on here. So a lot of times, a lot of stuff is improvement, or a lot of times, a lot of stuff is theoretical. So just as a note, like, these capabilities should not be treated as claimed. It should be treated as claimed but not proven, if that helps, just to put that note in there.
Yeah, that's a good note. Like, again, if this is truly a pigeon spy drone situation, they probably wouldn't be publishing papers. So take that for what it's worth. Like, our military wouldn't be, would they? They'd be pretty secretive about it. So just saying, I'm not quite sure how it all leaked out and what they're saying, but it really leads you to think, if they can start doing this, it's like every sci-fi where they're controlling, I can't help myself, and they're controlling a person at some point. And, the custom backpack containing a GPS camera and solar interface, that it's funny but hilarious. Now we've got suicide bombers in the form of pigeons.
Yeah.
We just, when you're close enough to the thing, they blow up. It's scary. We living in this world. But I gotta wonder, except for spy maneuvers, the blow up thing, it's probably easier and cheaper to do cardboard drones and stuff versus trying to do brain implant on pigeons and then train them for a short bit and then do it. It's just probably easier to go the other way.
It makes sense that they use pigeons, because pigeons naturally have these homing whatever. Like, you can send a message, and people used to use pigeons to send messages. So it makes sense that they would experiment with pigeons. But this is cruel and scary from a future tech perspective, as far as next steps in humans, right?
Yeah, and I just want to point out a few facts before people say you guys are crazy conspiracy theorists or what have you. But so let's talk about some things that have happened in the past. During WW2, B.F. Skinner developed Project Pigeon, which attempted to use pigeons inside missiles to guide them by pecking at targets on a screen. The military canceled it, but the birds were shockingly accurate. Inside a missile, I have a pigeon that poked objects on the screen that were colored a certain way that so if things moved and the target moved on the screen, the pigeon would poke at it and the missile would hit it. Just saying, these things have happened in the past. Fact 2, the CIA actually tried this in the 1960s with Acoustic Kitty. They implanted a microphone and transmitter into a cat to spy on the Soviets. The project cost millions and ended abruptly when the cat was reportedly hit by a taxi on its first field test. And you can actually buy do-it-yourself Cyborg kit legally right now. A company called Backyard Brain sells Robo Roach kit that lets students control a cockroach's movements via a smartphone app via micro stimulation. So, doubters, say what you want, but the technology is out there and has existed for a while.
That's scary. I don't like that at all. But I'm not surprised that this is happening, right? So yeah, it's just this is this is one of those that just makes me uncomfortable.
Bio drones or bionic pigeons are a terrifying concept right now. The laws of physics and animal ethics are keeping them grounded in a lab for now, but would you ever trust a delivery service run by cyborg pigeons? or does it sound like a horror movie waiting to happen? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. Oh, I hate that. Off. Come on. There we
Banner's
go.
not coming up. Oh.
They set a timer on all the banners, so they automatically go after 10 seconds. And I'm like, I have to. Anyway, it's just whatever. StreamYard, it's all sorts of fun. We always accepted that a human trip to Mars takes nearly a year and irradiates the crew, but a new propulsion prototype that just shredded that timeline. If these lab results hold up, we aren't looking at a year-long odyssey. We're looking at reaching the red planet in just 30 days. Scientists at Rosatom have successfully tested a 300 kilowatt plasma engine prototype that uses magnetic fields to accelerate particles to 100 kilometers per second. Unlike traditional rockets that burn fuel instantly, the engine pulses energy to build massive speeds over time. Speed equals safety in space. Cutting travel time by 90% drastically reduces astronaut exposure to cosmic radiation and microgravity bone loss, making human colonization actually biologically viable. What do you think about this, John?
Yeah, I love this. I love technology. I love engine technology. We've covered tons of these. So just to kind of talk to you or let you know how a plasma propulsion engine works. The plasma engine, it doesn't burn fuel like a traditional rocket. Instead, it ionizes a propellant, often hydrogen, which I love, and uses magnetic fields to rapidly accelerate those ions. So for example, and by the way, this is a Russian company, Russian scientists at Rosatom have claimed they can accelerate particles to 100 kilometers per second, which is about 62 miles per second, which is far above traditional chemical rocket exhaust velocities. So at that speed, the average transit time to Mars could drop to 30 to 60 days if sustained, which is the basis for a lot of these dramatic headlines. However, achieving such thrust in vacuum with realistic spacecraft mass and power systems is a huge challenge. Okay, the theoretical speeds are reachable, but the power sources, heat rejection, and long duration reliability of such a system are still unproven in space conditions. So even if a propulsion tech could constantly accelerate a spacecraft at high velocity, reaching Mars in 30 days requires sustaining high thrust for weeks, then decelerating on approach, which is a huge engineering trade-off. So the immense delta V, which is the change in velocity required, isn't just about going fast. You also need to stop at the end. And managing that energy efficiently, that requires massive power and innovative system architecture. So you essentially, it's there's the theory for this, but there's no theory for the braking system for this. So that's kind of where we're at now. The most promising technology for fast transit right now, it's not a single magic engine, and I put magic in quotes, but it's more of a class of electric and advanced propulsion systems. So we're talking plasma thrusters, we're talking magnetoplasma rockets, even fusion concepts. So although this is great, what are your thoughts on this plasma propulsion, Craig?
Well, we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see it in like. It's great that we think we can do this, and when I say we think we can do this, I mean it works. But is it really gonna work on a 30-day trip, bursting every few seconds or however long it has to burst the whole way there, and then slow down, and then the whole way? Like, I mean, that is different than saying, "Hey, we can do this." We've tested it once. So is this the technology that's going to get us there? I don't know. But I think the concept of a constant burst either via a nuclear onboard reactor or something else that continues to allow it to accelerate over time. But you're right. The problem is acceleration and deceleration. Humans can only handle so much. And it might take days to decelerate or weeks, depending on, and are you at that point in time, are you leaning forward and being held back by your seatbelt the whole time kind of situation? Because, the inertial dampeners that we see everywhere don't really exist in life. So the humans have to take it.
Yeah. Like there's so many, and it's not like there's new challenges because of this, but there's still the same challenges, right? There's the deep space hazards, there's cosmic radiation, there's microgravity effects on health, there's reliable life support, psychological well-being. Now, the psychological well-being is probably cut down because faster travel reduces some of these risks, but there's still a lot of risks with this. But the biggest one is the deceleration. And so I didn't even think about that until I read this article. It makes total sense. Right now, in order to decelerate, because they're not going too fast, is I think they're using like air thrusters in space to kind of change direction and slow down and things like that. That's as far as we've come, as far as I know. And obviously using the same rocket when you're landing on the moon and things like that. But that's as far as we've come as far as braking systems. We're using air to brake. And so if we're traveling at 100 kilometers per second or 62 miles per second, air is not going to stop us, or it's going to take a lot of air.
Yeah, I think this is a difference between a top fuel dragster and a maglev train. A chemical rocket like a SpaceX Starship is the dragster. It burns all its fuel in minutes to get off the line fast, but then coast. This plasma engine is like a maglev. It starts slow, producing only a tiny amount of push, but it never stops pushing. So it accelerates constantly for weeks, eventually reaching speeds that the dragster could only dream of. So the target timeline is 2030. For a flight-ready model, though this is optimistic. This is strictly a deep space transit, so we'll need to take a look at where they're testing this and what their plan is when they say deep space. Is this like just can we try it to the moon and back, or is this something that takes a little bit longer? Yeah, I'm really excited about this. And while 6 Newton sounds pathetic, in the vacuum of space, continuous acceleration adds up. If you accelerate at just a fraction of a G continuously, you can cross the solar system in weeks, not years. This is the premise of constant acceleration drives. But Rosatom isn't alone. The U.S. company Ad Astra has been developing the Vasimir engine, the variable specific impulse magnetoplasma rocket, for decades with similar goals. So we're officially in a plasma race, and the elephant in the room is the power source. To get a 300 kilowatt of constant power in deep space, solar panels are too heavy and inefficient past Mars. The engine requires a nuclear fission reactor on board the spaceship to work. And we've talked about several companies that are building those nuclear reactors for them, and we haven't looked at them in a few months, so I'm not sure where they are.
Yeah. And then there's also researchers who are exploring laser-driven light sails, fusion engines, which we touched on. So there's a lot of different concepts out there, which is good because obviously one of them has to work, but we still need a braking system. So please, someone work on the braking system.
Yeah, and high energy plasma eats away at the engine's internal. So if the engine degrades after 40 days of firing, is the crew stranded in deep space? Also, launching a nuclear reactor into orbit to power this is a huge regulatory nightmare. That's going to be a problem. So the physics is solid, but the engineering challenge of keeping this engine from melting itself is the final boss battle of space travel. Would you volunteer for a 30-day fast track to Mars if it meant sleeping on top of a nuclear reactor? Drop a radiant or a risky in the chat. Let us know.
Wonder if anyone's working on warp drives.
Yeah, so this was a little bit of a interesting one.
A lot to dig in, yeah.
Uh, all right, let's go. Stop saying you only have 5 senses. That's Aristotelian nonsense that's holding you back. How we understand human hardware. Modern neuroscience just confirmed you're actually running between 22 and 33 distinct sensory inputs, and knowing them unlocks a massive upgrade for your health and spatial awareness. So the 5 senses model is obsolete, and we aren't just seeing and hearing, we are processing. Look, I'm going to get a lot of this wrong. Proprioception, limb position, vestibular data, balance, and interoception, internal organ statuses in real time. It's a shift from viewing the brain as a simple 5-channel receiver to a massive multi-sensory integration engine. And this explains everything from why VR motion sickness happens to why airplane noise makes tomato soup taste better. Understanding this allows us to hack your own experiences. What do you think about this, John?
I think this is cool. This makes total sense. I don't think this is sci-fi. And this just speaks to how science has advanced. And so now they've recognized that many of the bodily systems previously lumped under general systems or general senses are in fact functionally separate sensory modalities. So for example, what we call touch is actually a complex grouping of sensory inputs: pressure, vibration, heat, cold, pain, itch, all that stuff, right? Each with dedicated receptors and neural pathways. Similarly, with taste and smell, they involve multiple submodalities and interactions rather than a single unified sense. So, beyond the 5 senses, researchers identify sensory systems, and that's what you were talking about. So, proprioception, I think, I could be wrong, is the subconscious sense of where your body parts are in space, allowing you to touch your nose with your eyes closed. There's vestibular sense, which is balance and spatial orientation, which is mediated by the fluid and hair cells in the inner ear. Interoception, which is sensing internal states of the body like heart rate, hunger, breath, and bladder fullness. Nociception, which is the perception of pain, which alerts the body to potential damage. And so these systems are physiologically distinct from classic senses and have dedicated neural processing pathways. So they suggest that if each of these sensory channels is counted separately, the number of human senses could reach anywhere between 22 and 33. And so I think this is cool. So just to add another layer of complexity to all of this, it lies in how these senses interact. So human perception, it's not a sense of independent channels firing in isolation. Instead, it's sensory inputs that are continuously integrated in the brain to form a unified and coherent experience. So for example, your sense of taste is heavily influenced by smell and touch, which is why food flavors seem richer or different when aromas are present. So like it makes total sense to me. What about you?
It makes sense. I guess I just, never really thought about this because, what is that feeling when you're internally, your stomach is grumbling or, you're not, or you're feeling hot or so I guess I never really thought about those types of things as different types of perception, but I guess it's like, the dashboards of old 1970 sedans, you just had a speedometer and a fuel gauge. The modern reality is your battery is more like a Formula One car. You have hundreds of telemetry sensors like monitoring tire pressure, touch and pressure, engine heat, the thermoception, chassis tilt, the vestibular and internal fuel chemistry, the interoception, all feeding into a central computer simultaneously. And I think when you start looking into this, you're going to start to see more of the science around why they say your gut is your second brain and it may have more control over you than you think. because it has control over several types of these perceptions, senses.
Yeah. And I think this is great, not only for understanding this for building robotics and robots, right, but understanding these for practical implications for medicine, psychology, and rehab. Like, for instance, disruption in interoception, they can be linked to anxiety and eating disorders, and balance disorders stem from vestibular dysfunction. So if you can recognize that there's a richer sensory landscape, that actually could help clinicians diagnose and treat conditions that were previously misunderstood. I think this has huge implications for the medical world.
I think it does too. Like it changes. I think it has effects on all areas of life that we just haven't realized yet.
Yeah.
Like if the sound in an airplane cabin can make umami taste in tomato juice more strong while softening other tastes. What other sounds, what other pressure, what other things can change your feeling and senses and enhance or retard other feelings, right? Or senses. So imagine restaurants that have the sound or volume or pressure or smells or the things that now they know will maximize the experience of the dishes they're serving that evening. Or maybe your dentist does certain things that reduces your pain receptors based on your environment around. There's a lot of interesting things when you start looking at how your body interacts, and you can really start changing things in your life when you start realizing what is controlling these things, and can you change your mood, or can you change how you react to things around you as a result of this?
Absolutely. Yeah. Can they introduce things for therapy? Can they introduce different sensory things to help with recovery? Like, there's a whole bunch of there's a plethora of opportunity here for changing the way that people are treated, for treatments. This is phenomenal. I'm so excited about this. I love this.
So the vestibular system balance is basically a biological accelerometer and a gyroscope located in your inner ear, using fluid inertia to detect head rotation, gravitational pull, identical physics to your smartphone's screen rotation sensor. The McGurk effect proves your brain trusts vision over audio. If you see a video of lips saying ga, but you hear the sound ba, your brain will force you to hear da. It's a hardware bug in sensory integration. So you just have to, this has been tested. It's called the McGurk effect. Look it up. Humans technically have a magnetoreception hardware, or cryptochromones in the eye, similar to migratory birds, but the software seems to be disabled or subconscious in modern humans, so we don't have to migrate south for the summer like they do.
Yeah.
So is counting, itch, puritoception it's called, and pain, nociception, as separate senses, just semantic bloating? Or some argue that these are just subgenres of touch, making 33 senses claim a bit more academic and maybe more inflated than it really is. So your high performance machine running dozens of background processes, start treating your body like it. Now that you know you have 33 senses, which one is malfunctioning for you today? Is it your balance, your internal hunger gauge, or plain old eyesight? Let us know in the chat what you're going to work on and what you think of these studies. It should be popular.
Maybe. At least funny.
For decades, medical textbooks claimed humans pass gas 14 times a day, but a new wearable sensor just proved that number is a total lie. We are looking at the Fitbit for flatulence, and it reveals your gut as twice as active as your doctor thinks. The world's first objective fart tracker, a clip-on electrochemical sensor for your underwear that tracks intestinal gas events in real time. Early data from Human Flatus Atlas study shows the average person has 32 events per day, shattering previous medical estimates. This kills the reliance on patient self-reporting, which is notoriously unreliable, and creates hard data standard for diagnosing IBS, SIBO, and food intolerance. What do you think about this, John?
I think this is great because there's so many people who suffer from IBS, suffer from gut biome issues, from so many issues, and your gut is essentially your second brain, which we've covered before. But I think this is great for treatment. So just to kind of like the way that they used to measure flatulence was relying on participants to self-report gas episodes, or on brief invasive clinical tests that can't really capture what happens during everyday life. So obviously these approaches underestimate how much gas people actually pass. So this new smart underwear changes this, and they use electrochemical sensors that attach discreetly to daily underwear and continuously detect hydrogen gas, which is a byproduct of gut bacteria fermenting food. And this happens throughout normal activities. So this will give researchers a real-world continuous data stream rather than snapshots or unreliable memory. The other thing, so just to talk about hydrogen. So hydrogen is useful as a marker because it's produced exclusively by gut microbiomes, meaning the sensors aren't just counting events. They are directly tracking underlying microbial metabolism in the intestines. So this is functionally similar to how continuous glucose monitors, how they revolutionize diabetes care by replacing periodic finger prick checks with ongoing metabolic data. And like you said, using these sensors, they found on average about 32 times a day that people were passing gas, which is double what other literature estimated. But what they also found was there was a wide variation. Some people pass gas as few as 4 times in a day, while others pass gas 59 times or more. So, which obviously this challenges conventional notion that there's a single normal rate of flatulence. But it also speaks to a bigger issue. And this is something that is just starting to come to the surface now in the last year or two, I would say, for me at least. And this is taking care of your gut microbiome. And so this is great for for two types of people, those who have issues and those who actually want to treat or work on their gut microbiome. I'd wear this. What about you?
Well, I guess it depends on what actual data you get. Like, great, I like to think of this as an emission test for your car. A mechanic checks the exhaust to see how the engine is burning fuel. This sensor checks your exhaust to see exactly how your microbiome is breaking down carbohydrates, as an example. If the reading is off, we know the engine, your gut, needs tuning. And so if it was proactive enough to supplements, the right probiotics, the right, foods I need to eat or whatever to fix the problems that, I would, rather than it just reporting back that I am over flatulent than average people. And, I need to look at that or what have you. I think it was a study of only 19 healthy adults in the U.S. Participants had no significant gastrointestinal diseases, ensuring the focus was on normal physiology. They continued to wear their continued with their normal diets and routines. They wore the clip-on sensor during wake-on hours over the course of a week, waking hours. So I don't know if it was 19 people. Is that a long enough study?
Yeah, I don't think so. But it's a good start.
You're right. The biggest shift in GI diagnostics since the capsule endoscopy, we talked about the pill camera before, we're moving the subjective symptom diaries to objective biometric logging. I always thought that we should have better toilets that do chemical analysis, because that would probably give you
which we
a
covered.
detailed. Pardon?
Which we covered at CES.
Well, they don't. They do a visual one, not a
Yeah.
chemical one.
No.
And that the chemical analysis would then obviously be the way to go and get all that stuff. But if we can get some of that through this electrical chemical sensing, great. And anything that actually helps. I think that today's day and age, we don't know what's in half of what we're eating. People can't sleep. Their gut hurts all the time. Things are going on, and it'd be nice to have some idea that you're moving in the right direction, some guidance that it's this biome or that biome that you can actually do yourself, versus having to go to all sorts of doctors and take tests and do all these things that may or may not end up helping.
Yeah, exactly.
So the sensor detects hydrogen, but hydrogen itself is odorless. The smell comes from sulfur compounds, less than 1% of the volume, which means this device tracks activity, not stink. The study is officially called the Human Flatus Atlas. While it sounds funny, Atlas projects like the Cancer Genome Atlas are actually scientific gold standard for mapping biological baselines. Why hydrogen? Because humans cells don't produce hydrogen, only bacteria do. If a sensor detects H2, it is 100% confirmation of microbial activity with zero noise from the host's body.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally have hard data on one bodily function nobody wanted to talk about. And it turns out we're all twice as active as we thought. Be honest in the chat. Would you wear a fart tracker to get better health data, or is that too much information? Drop a yes or no. We'd love to hear what you think. We used to think quantum computing was sci-fi, but IBM's new 1121 qubit Condor chip just dragged it into reality. If you rely on standard encryption or GPS, the foundation of your tech stack is about to crack wide open. So the quantum era has just went hardware native. We've moved beyond theory. IBM's Heron and Condor processes are live, enabling calculations for drug discovery and logistics that classical computers physically cannot handle. We are transitioning from noisy experimental to actual error-corrected processing. This triggers the harvest now, decrypt later crisis. Your current data is being hoarded by bad actors to be unlocked by these very machines in a few years. What do you think about this, John?
I think this is great, and this is kind of talking about like just kind of letting you know the changes that the five big changes that we've covered individually previously. So some of these include advances in medicine and material discovery, sensors that dramatically improve navigation and health monitoring, optimization of complex systems like logistics and finance, ultra-secure communications that resist hacking, and tools to boost artificial intelligence. So quantum technology, just to get everyone on the same page, it leverages quantum mechanical principles, such as superposition, which is a system existing in multiple states simultaneously, and entanglement, which is correlations that link particles across a distance. So these phenomena enable quantum computers, sensors, and communication systems that work fundamentally different from classical devices. Some people like to call it magic, but instead of bits that are either 0 or 1, quantum systems use qubits that can be 0 and 1 at the same time, which allows them to process information in ways that classical computers can't. So the core idea itself, it underpins a new class of tools. So quantum computers, they can explore huge combinations of possibilities at once. So they can crack your password in less than, I don't know, a few seconds. Quantum sensors, because they're so sensitive, they can detect signals with far greater precision than existing devices. And we've covered this we covered all of this, but quantum communication systems that use quantum states to transmit information securely. And so they could transform all of these fields once it gets to a usable thing. Right now, and we've talked about this too, right, Craig? Quantum computing is where computers were in the 70s, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you're cool.
Think of this update like a mouse in a maze versus water in a maze. A classic computer is the mouse. It runs into a wall, turns around, tries a new path. It's fast, but it does one thing at a time. Quantum computer is like pouring water into the maze. The water flows down every path simultaneously, and it instantly finds the exit. So we just upgraded from the mouse to the host. I am excited about this. Every time we see these new chips and these new breakthroughs, quantum computing becomes more of a reality to me and it seems like 10 years closer almost every time. So, we're talking about near term within less than 5 years for specialized sensors using these chips, and about 10 years or so for having them on your desktop.
Yeah. And like, for those of you that are like, oh, well, we're like, there's no, quantum is so far away, or quantum computing or quantum mechanics it's still sci-fi. To be honest, there's a lot of technologies that we take for granted. So MRI machines, lasers, GPS atomic clocks, they all depend on quantum mechanics, even if we don't realize it. And these come from sort of the first wave of quantum technology that exploited quantum behavior, but not the full quantum information processing. So we already have implementation in industry now. We just haven't taken it to the next level.
And we're starting to see it used more and more in everyday things we never would have thought of. Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how quantum computing is going to be used in edge states of robotics to determine the exact position of the arm and state in real time, in the wrist or in the whatever, because the computational power is too much. But at a quantum state level, you can now have that robot react in real time so much faster than it could have before.
Yeah. Like it's accelerating. I think in my opinion, it's accelerating faster than the development of the computer. But it's much more complex as well. So like, it could seem like the reason why I'm saying that is because quantum is so much more complex than a computer. And so it might seem like it's accelerating slow because of technology, because of where we're at, and because of how many people can be involved in the internet and all that sort of stuff. I think it's evolving much quicker than the computer was back in the day.
As you mentioned, we're in the vacuum tube transistor moment. We're moving from massive, noisy experimental rigs to scalable, error-corrective architecture. To make these chips work, they operate at near absolute zero, negative 273 degrees Celsius. That is colder than deep space. These machines require a dilution refrigerator that sounds like a jet pulse compared to your refrigerator hum. The banking sector, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, isn't just interested. They're actively running portfolio optimization on these machines because even a 1% efficiency gain in a quantum model is worth billions. So keep that in mind. They're not just something that's out there. And if you didn't know, biology did it first. European robins actually use quantum entanglement in their retinas to see Earth's magnetic field for migration. We are just trying to reverse engineer a bird's eye. Think about that.
Yeah. This is so the thing is that quantum technology is not a single thing. It's a suite of emerging technologies. So it's not just computing. It's a bunch of different things. It's computing, it's sensing, it's communication. So that's why we have that's why we cover so much, because there's so many different industries that are going to be affected by this, that that people are working on technology for, using quantum technology as the base.
Yeah, this quantum technology is what changes us from our current state to a Star Trek style civilization.
Yeah.
As we just learn leaps and bounds so much faster. These qubits are incredibly fragile and reach decoherence fast. A slight temperature change or vibration ruins the calculation. We are in a NISQ era, noisy intermediate scale quantum, meaning the computers still make a lot of mistakes. So quantum isn't replacing your laptop just yet. It's replacing the laboratory, accelerating science from centuries to days. Does the era of computer breaking all known encryption terrify you? Or are you excited for better battery tech? Vote and let us know what you think.
We can skip this if you want to go to one of the other ones you wanted to talk about.
Oh, you want to do
whatever one you want.
The OpenAI acquisition?
Sure.
Sweet. Silly little thing. All right. Sam Altman predicted it years ago. The first one-person billion-dollar company, with OpenAI acquiring OpenClaw just 25 days after its public release.
Yeah.
And spinning up a foundation today. Peter Steinberger might have just proved him right. The indie agent era ends as a new platform begins, with OpenAI officially acquiring the viral autonomous agent OpenClaw. It's open source, but it's placing it under a new open source foundation. This moves the tech from a chaotic GitHub project to a standard industry protocol. Now, we'll have to see what changes, but this confirms the agentic future. We're done with chat. The industry is now betting the house on AI that does things, not just say things. What do you think about this, John? And is it a good move? Yeah. Does this start making OpenAI catch up to some of the other ones as it was flagging behind?
I think so. So this kind of scares me. This worries me. This reminds me back in the day of Microsoft and how they just bought up all of these startups and all this sort of stuff. So this worries me in that aspect. But yes, OpenAI is way behind, in my opinion, especially when it comes to Claude. Claude has just there's a bunch. I don't use really Gemini. Gemini is pretty good too, but anyways, so it makes sense that Sam Altman would merge with this. So rather than fully acquiring OpenClaw as a proprietary software, they announced that the project will be moved into a foundation to remain open source while benefiting from OpenAI's infrastructure, research capabilities, and safety expertise. So I don't know what that means. I hope that it reflects, or I hope that it adheres to OpenAI's mission to balance innovation with responsible deployment. But the thing was, Steinberger himself, he chose not to build a traditional company around OpenClaw. So he said that partnering with OpenAI offers the best path to widely scale intelligent agents safely and across engineering resources. So we'll have to see in the coming weeks where does this land in the OpenAI ecosystem, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, we'll have to see where it lands, because we don't quite know. But Anthropic has been eating OpenAI's lunch in the corporate world and in many worlds these days. And with, like you said, Claude work, they've really taken a lead in a lot of areas. Now, this will allow OpenAI to implement that same kind of functionality quickly into their environment. And we'll have to see what kind of actual tools get built into OpenAI as a result. And My concern, being an OpenClaw user, does it slow down innovation in OpenClaw? Used to be I'd get a new update every day. I do a new pull, and every day there'd be 13 changes, 20 changes, 50 changes, because people are inputting stuff all the time. Does this change? Does it slow it down for 30 days because it's now in a new GitHub controlled somewhere else? I haven't really looked into where this is going or what time the cutoff is, but I noticed there wasn't any updates today. There wasn't any updates yesterday. So that doesn't particularly mean anything, but if it continues for several more days, then something has happened. So whether that'll mean someone just forks this like other people have been doing, because OpenClaw, if you don't know, is an AI agent that runs on your desktop or on your Mac or in the cloud and has full access to your machine and can do things, can take actions, can build software, can build agents to publish, to post, to anything pretty much that you can think of. It can do automatically in the background 24/7 if you with a few prompts and getting testing and getting things right. And that changes things dynamically from copying, pasting in Windows and stuff, and takes workflows and whatnot to a new dynamic. So we're now blurring what an AI agent is versus I don't know what we're going to new world of an agentic desktop, which now your desktop is going to not just be an OS, but be a bunch of agents that do things for you.
Yeah.
So think of old ChatGPT like a consultant that gives you amazing advice, but you still have to go and do the actual work. OpenClaw is an executive assistant. You give it a goal and it schedules the meeting, files the paperwork, sends the email without asking you a single follow-up question, or it follows up depending on what you tell it to do. This is out now. I'm curious to see. This has been a meteoric rise over. It's been talked about everywhere. It's got most GitHub stars in 20 days of any product anywhere. And it was just a matter of time. So it has 2 million reported weekly visitors on GitHub. And, the multi-agentic orchestration is, the way to go. So Peter Steinberg isn't just a random hire. He is the founder of PSP DF Kit. He's a world-class expert in document handling and developer tooling. So he made his millions early, like before. He's a world-class expert in, which explains why OpenAI is pivoting hard towards getting things done with documents. So the rumor of OpenAI open source foundation suggests a defensive move against Meta's LLAMA. If true, OpenAI is trying to regain the open in their name to court developers who fled open source models. I don't know, with now they're putting ads and whatnot in. I don't know, how open they really want to be. On the name OpenClaw references Claude. So we'll have to see, or crawlers. So we'll have to see if there's going to be a big shift in name change and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think OpenAI is as pure intentions like they might have at one point, or they are perceived to. So we'll have to see what the open source community responds to this and what OpenAI actually does. So we've graduated from artificial intelligence to artificial action. Would you trust OpenClaw to book a non-refundable flight for you right now? Let us know, yes or no, in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So what do you got going on, John?
Yeah, depending on when this comes out, obviously we've got startup drinks, we've got Flowgrammer events, just working with clients on their shred and non-dilutive funding. So right now, Can Export is open. So if you've got at least 300,000 in revenue and you want to increase your sales outside of the country, reach out to me on LinkedIn, John Irwin. And if what do you have going on, Craig?
Well, let me just ask you a quick question here, John, because most people don't know. Can Export is one of the grants that allow for marketing. And if you're traveling to the US to do conferences or sales meetings or whatnot, you can get up to 100,000, or you 50. Said more, 300,000, 50,000?
No, 300,000 in revenue to be eligible.
So, keep that in mind because, people doing this all the time. If you've got a set of conferences you're planning on going to and have booths at and stuff, you should be looking at this right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And for non-dilutive funding, it's tax season now. John, people be looking back at their shred funding?
People should have already been looking, but if you're late to the game, feel free to reach out if you have any questions and you need help with your shred, or if you need help with any kind of applications. Yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, John Irwin.
Yeah, and thanks for giving the shout out to TorontoStarts.com, where we help entrepreneurs and investors and anybody in their founder journey meet, connect. We do workshops and monthly startup investor drinks. So check that out. The other thing you should check out is flowgrammer.ca. That's our AI business automation agency. We also do events in Toronto and live events online. So if you're interested in AI agents, OpenClaw, and workflows, check us out there. All the events will be found there. And we appreciate everyone who listened or watched today.
Thanks, guys.